remember. Yeah, I have
I
not started
see.
recording. Okay, so that is the main action of carbonium sulfuratum because they have that sulfur. They have action on skin also, and carb is the so there is rheumatic complaints, but mostly their action is concentrated in eyes, in macular degeneration, myopia, asthenopia. We'll see, go through that, and then we'll go for the comparisons. How are the different comparisons we can make between these five drugs? And then after to that, we'll start with the LAC groups. It is actually towards the last in your syllabus, the LAC, the milk remedies, LAC, LAC group. So we'll start with that. I mean, we'll do that. We'll see how much we can finish today. Okay, so is it visible for us?
Yes.
Okay. So we start with carbonium sulfuratum, so which is alcohol sulfurous or bisulfide of carbon. Or carbonium sulf, we just put that synonym. And constitution, this constitution is very important that it is a constitution broken down by abuse of alcohol. We have many remedies. We have remedies like um, all our nosodes, the sorinum, tuberculinum, midorinum. Uh, then there is another one, sulfuric acid. All these remedies, they are actually alcoholic, suited for alcoholic. So carbonium sulfuratum, because maybe even sulfur is good for alcoholics. So because of the presence of sulfur, this constitution is mainly suited for those people who are broken down by abuse of alcohol. And the carb presence over there, the patients are feeling very cold, lack of vital heat, muscle wasting. These are all features of carb, the carbonate in that constitution. And they also have skin and mucous membrane, which is anesthetic in nature, or they don't have that sensations. So the complaints in which there can be anesthesia or the patient doesn't have any sensations. Along with that, one of the common complaint may be diabetes mellitus, or otherwise we can see this is indicated in conditions of neurosyphilis. Neurosyphilis also that's the third stage of syphilis. So when the nerves have been degenerated, then they don't have that sensations. So in those conditions also we can think about. So people who have been abused of alcohol, chilly in nature, and having this anesthetic nature in skin, mucous membrane. Later we will see it can be seen even in hands and arms, and also in feet. So that anesthesia is a common feature for carbonium sulfurate. Then they have special affinity for eyes. There might be chronic rheumatism because this is a remedy with a syphilitic background. So syphilis, when it is suppressed, it can manifest as a rheumatic complaints. So this is indicated for rheumatic complaints, and they have a periodical nature also. And this periodicity, even calcarea carp, that is also having a periodicity. They have aggravation every full moon. So even that constituent of carbonium sulfur, they show periodicity. Even sulfur. Sulfur is also having periodicity. They have annual complaints. Then particular season, the complaints are returning. Even the headache of sulfur is every 2 weeks. So a periodicity is shown. So our drug, when both comes together, the carbonium sulfuratum, they also have periodicity, especially in case of diarrhea, which is periodical, like every 4 to 6 weeks. Then there can be paralysis because I told you already there will be some nervous affections. So paralysis with intense congestion of nerve centers, the turbs dorsalis. The turbs dorsalis is actually the another name for uh, not another name, but a feature during the neurosyphilis, that's the tertiary stage of syphilis. Then there can be sensory difficulties. We told already that there is anesthesia, so the sensations may be affected in limbs, which means the nerves are actually degenerating. So those conditions. So in chronic alcoholism also we could see symptoms like this if it is indicated. Then most of the symptoms, carbonic sulfuratum, like this is a remedy which is prescribed very less. I have seen, I have seen very less prescription of carbonium sulfuratum. I have seen only one of my professor prescribing this, and he used to prescribe this medicine. It was 30 potency he used to prescribe, and he used to prescribe this medicine for a patient who was having some or the other eye complaint. Okay, I'm not sure what it was because I was studying second BHMS at that time. But I remember that he used to give this carbonium sulfuratum for that patient only for some eye complaints. So in eye, I don't remember what that patient was having the complaint, but in eyes, usually this can be given for many of the degenerative conditions like myopia or short-sightedness, asthenopia, where there is a eye strain, there is a weakness of vision, not complete blindness, but there can be a weakness of vision, and it is also associated with fatigue, pain in and around eyes, blurred vision, headache, occasional double vision, etc. Then condition of dyschromatopsia, which means the color perception is affected. It is almost similar to color blindness, but in color blindness, that is usually a hereditary condition. When we say, I understood this difference when I was referring for that. So when we say color blindness, usually the complaint has to be congenital in nature, and the primary colors are affected, especially the green and red. But in case of dyschromatopsia, it is mainly, it can be an acquired one also later in the life, not congenital. And here, the perception of the color is affected, and it can be any color like yellow, blue, red, green, any color it can come. But color blindness is usually congenital, and it is only for green and red. So that's why the difference is coming. Nevertheless, this medicine is given for color blindness also, but still the particular term that has been used is dyschromatopsia. Dyschromatopsia. Okay. There can be cloudiness or atrophy of optic disc. Then there will be central scotoma, or there may be the vision in the central part that will be affected, or that will be reduced when compared to the surroundings. So there can be central scotoma for light and for red and green color, but not for white color. So the central scotoma, the appearance will be like this. Like when the person is viewing, there is a blinded vision or a reduced vision in the center part, but not affecting the surroundings. And in case of this one, carbonium sulfuratum, it's usually for light red and green colors, not for white. So, but I really don't know whether does it matter, because if we could get a central scotoma, we could try with this medicine, because almost all the eye complaints, see the optic neuritis, which is advancing towards atrophy. So optic neuritis means the optic nerves that has been undergone inflammation. So it's degenerative changes. So then also the blindness or the perception of vision is affected. So any complaints which can affect the vision, we can think about that. There can be retinal congestion, optic disc is pale, arteries and veins congested. So this type of tortuous condition of arteries and veins, if we could find in hypertension or even in glaucoma, we can think about this remedy. The patient seems the vision will be everything as if in a fog, as if a spider's web over objects. Like that would be his vision, spider's web over the objects, like some completely clouded. I hope you understand when they use that word. Then this is a physician of that time who I got this from J.H. Clark. So maybe a physician of that time. Um, He has reported success in early macular degeneration using carbonium sulfuratum. And he used to give medicine 30C every day. So I don't know whether my professor was also following this statement, because he also used to give 30C. And that was given for macular degeneration. This physician. And he has seen resolution in case of all these pigmentary changes. Then in carbonic sulfuratum, actually, the abdominal symptoms per se is not important, but one of the feature, like there can be a flatus, and flatus it will be like wandering swellings. Like sometimes the flatus will be accumulated in one part of the abdomen, and then it will be shifting to another part. So this comparison they made, that the flatus is like a wandering swelling, that made it interesting. So I just noted it down. But the important feature will be this one, carbonium sulfuratum, because the carb is there. We can compare even with the carbo wedge. So they have the flatulency of carbo wedge, and in case of carbo wedge, if you remember, it is the trio of flatulence, and carbo wedge it is in the upper abdomen. So carbonium sulfuratum, because of that carb constituent, they are having flatulency, and all the carb remedies, they are having almost all the carb remedies are having action in the GIT. That carbon, it's a feature of carbonate. So they have flatulency and the abdominal soreness of sulfur. And sulfur, if you remember, they have venous congestions, uh, and also especially the portal vein. So in sulfur, wherever there is a portal congestion, we could think about this. So the condition where there is hepatomegaly, and they have used the drunkard's complaint, the cholelithiasis, cholecystitis, everywhere where the portal vein is affected, sulfur can be thought of, because it's a good remedy for the venous congestion. So carbonium sulfuratum, it has that flatulency of carbovage and also the soreness of sulfur, and it is not that particular soreness, the venous congestion. We can connect it to the venous congestion of the sulfur, which we can see in carbonium sulfuratum also. Otherwise, per se, abdominal complaints is not much important for carbonium sulfuratum. It's usually, even in questions also, usually it will be asking like carbonium sulfuratum ice, if you're learning as an individual drug. Then for the extremities, we have the sore, bruised limbs. It doesn't matter. The important one will be sciatica. So they have a sciatica. The side has not been mentioned. So both sides maybe. And that pain is flying pains, like many of the lac caninum, calibicromicum, then pulsatilla. All these remedies have got shifting type. Sometimes here the pain will be, then sometimes some other some other area. It will be just shifting in nature. So even in sciatica of carbonium sulfuratum, they have that flying pains. So here we can see this flying pain. We can connect it with this nature also, lightning like pain. Lightning like pain means like of belladonna, what we say. It comes suddenly, it goes suddenly. That is the explanation for lightning like pain, because it's similar to lightning, it will come and then it goes in seconds. But that 1 second, 2 second, the pain won't be that 1 second, 2 second, but it will be just coming and going. But that will be too terrible, too severe type of pain. So even that pain is seen in lower lip with cramps and formication. So connect that symptom to sciatica over here. Uh, so in sciatica also there is that lightning pain, flying in nature with cramps, formication. You know the meaning of formication, do you?
Uh, no,
Formication
not
means
sure.
like a worm is moving under the skin. That's a
Warm,
sensation.
warmness. What?
Worm is moving. They feel like a worm is moving.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's the sensation. So we can connect it to that the numbness, or the tortuous nature of the veins or the nerves. It's just a sensation. They feel like something is moving all along. That's formication.
Okay.
So there can be neuritis also, because I told you this medicine is given for the nerve degeneration. So every complaint, so the nerve degeneration, when the nerve injury is happening, it goes through three stages, and then now I don't remember that sequence, but then only the final complete degeneration happens. So in the initial stage, they have this varied type of sensations, and finally the complete loss of sensation. So initially they have this crampy pain, formication, the inflammation, and then it will go towards complete anesthetic feeling. And they will be having a gait that is unsteady and tottering, which is worse in dark. And this unsteady gait, tottering, etc., everything goes to the nerves degeneration. It won't be mostly, usually, this gait unsteady, tottering. It can happen due to the problem with our cerebellum, where the movements are
Mm-hmm.
coordinated. Uh, but it may not be, in case of carbonium sulfuratum, it may not be the organ that is affected, but the nerve supply from the motor nerve supply that is arising from the cerebellum and supplying to the different parts. That might be affected. No, it won't be the cerebellum, the organ per se, that is affected. So the patient will be
Okay.
having gait unsteady or tendency to fall. Even this feature we can see in an alcoholic person in the chronic alcoholism, and also where there is stapes dorsalis or leprosy towards the later condition when the nerves have got completely degenerated, and some other nervous conditions. Similar to syphilis, we have conditions like um, what is that condition? Trypanema, ichthyosis. There is a condition which is characterized, yeah, endemic syphilis. One is endemic syphilis. We have the syphilis, then we have endemic syphilis, and then there is another condition
Mm-hmm.
with gangosa. You remember what is that? Gangosa. Which condition is that? There is a disease.
Miss, I think my line is a bit unclear. Can you repeat that?
No, I was asking you because even
Uh-huh.
I went out of my voice. There is a disease
Okay.
condition which is caused by Trypanema group of organisms, the spirochete, but it is having a different name. One of the pathological condition that it shows, we call it as gangosa. Have you heard
Gang
it?
goes.
Uh,
No, no.
we have one another. I need to see which is that disease actually. Caused by spirochetes. Oh, they're showing only this. Yeah, the yos. Have you heard of yos?
Mm-mm, no.
YAWS.
YAWN.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
Never heard
So
of it.
that is a condition almost similar to
Okay.
not epidemic, endemic syphilis. Actually, we study only syphilis caused by the spirochete Trypanema pallidum. But there are other type of spirochetes which can cause similar degenerative diseases. But most of them, it is not transmitted sexually as like syphilis. All this, the epidemic syphilis I told now, and then the yos, they are not transmitted sexually. uh, so that is why we study it as separate category. Though those diseases are caused by spirochetes itself, because it's not sexually transmitted. We don't study much frequently. We always study concentrated on STD. Then it goes towards
Mm-hmm.
syphilis, gonorrhea, etc. So even why I wanted to say this neurodegenerative disease is that the epidemic syphilis, sorry, endemic syphilis, and then this one, yos. So in all those conditions, diabetes, neurosyphilis, then chronic alcoholism, we have this nerve degeneration. So whenever there is a nerve degeneration, and that resulting in symptoms of the gait unsteady, tottering, uh, and even sciatica, lightning-like pains, we can think about carbonium sulfuratum. And this is also medicine that can be given for Raynaud's phenomenon. There will be insensitiveness. In Raynaud's also, they go through, there will be initially sudden, temporary, for transient period, there will be ischemia. Then there will be sudden flow of blood. So it goes through different changes of color also. Initially it will be pale, then it become reddish. No, it will be pale, then becoming bluish, and then reddish. So there is a gradation of color change. It is WBR. So initially, when the blood is not reaching that area, the fingers, it will become
Mhm.
pale or whitish. And then
Mhm.
for some time, if the blood is not reaching, there will be a bluishness or the cyanosis is happening. And then there will be sudden congestion, movement of blood to that area. So the color will be changing into red. It won't be that obvious, okay? It won't be that obvious, but the physiologically these changes will be present, and mostly the fingers are affected. It will be very stiff and insensible. So even for that Raynaud's phenomenon, we can think about carbonium sulfate. But rather we have another remedies also for Raynaud's. This Raynaud's usually it happens when there is a trigger, and that trigger will be mostly most of the condition it will be extreme cold. Whenever the patient is
Mm.
exposed to cold, then only they will be having this stiff rigid situation. So we already saw that the carbonium salt, though the sulfur is there, the patient is actually extremely chilly. So we can connect like that the Raynaud's phenomenon. Then in skin, we I already told you they are having anesthesia in skin and mucous membrane, and not just skin and mucous membrane in the arms, hands, and even the feet. There can be herpes on dorsal surface of hands. Ulcers can be there, which is with burning pain, and even the small wounds fester. Fester, which means it becomes septic or suppurate in nature. So we already saw in case of graphitis, hepatosal, mercurius, petroleum, that every injury suppurates. We can't say the
Mhm.
same with regard to this medicine. Because as I told you, this is mostly considered as a local remedy for eye complaints, but still they have ulcers with even the small wounds festering, which is becoming septic and separate. So even this ulcer, you can connect it all these conditions of syphilis, and whatever I told you, leprosy, yos, all these conditions will be having actually non-healing type or trophic type of ulcers. And that ulcers, when it is non-healing and even the small wounds are going into a suppurative or septic condition, we can think about that. And this septic condition, we can also connect it with the carb in that. If you remember
Mhm.
Carbovich,
Yeah.
yeah, Carbovich can be given for the varicose ulcers, if you remember.
Mhm.
And that nature, Carbovich, the affection in the venous or the varicose veins, and that leading to ulcers. So it won't,
Mhm.
in case of carbonium sulf also, it will be the same type of ulcers, the non-healing ulcers, the varicose ulcers, not the simple ulcer, but the complicated disease ulcers. So even in them, we can have these symptoms and furunculosis, which is boils actually with much itching, and that is the feature of sulfur. And this can be given, carbonium sulfurate to be given to restrain the growth of cancer.
Okay.
This will be the furuncle, whether boils or furuncle. It's a condition in which there will be infection and inflammation of the hair follicle. One or a group of hair follicle will be affected. This will be getting swollen, and after that, it will be getting pustular, and then we go for the CND. So furuncle also we can think. But we do have other medicines for furuncle. When it is furuncle, we can think about, because it is showing the signs of inflammation. We can think from our inflammatory medicines, aconite, belladonna, hepazole, mercurius, silesia. We have such a lot of medicines. We don't think much of carbonium sulfurate, but it is given. So that is why I told, even though these symptoms are there, the thing that you have to remember in case of carbonium sulfuration would be its action in eyes, and second will be the nervous degeneration, and then related symptoms. So in case of aggravation, they have aggravation after breakfast, after bathing. Bathing, this one we can connect to sulfur. Even sulfur, they don't want to bath. They have aggravation from bathing. So they may be the sulfur content. Then they're sensitive to warm, damp weather. When we say that the patient is extremely chilly, we believe that he will be having a preference to warmth, but they are sensitive. They're sensitive to warmth. So they're showing some were the feature of sulfur also. The aggravation from warmth is common to carboveg and sulfur. And in carbonium sulfuratum, it shows as toothache, which is brought on by warm food. It is not that much important, this symptom. That's why I just put in case of carbonium sulfuratum, I just put in black color. But this feature that it is sensitive to warmth and this warmth, that aggravation, because we saw the patient is chilly, but still the aggravation from warmth is coming. That feature is coming from sulfur and even carboveg, not the calcarea carb. If we are going to think about calcarea carb, yeah, it is going to be a chili remedy, but that they are taken from carbo vegetables. And even in carbo veg, if you remember, the patient is actually bleeding or hemorrhagic in nature. He may be in a last stage with a cold sweat. The whole body is when we touch it will be having a cold temperature, but still the patient wants to be fanned. If you remember, the patient wants to be constantly fanned because they have that air hunger. So even though carbo veg is in this icy cold situation, still they want to be fanned and they have aggravation from warmth. So the same feature we can see in case of carbonium sulfate. So just to bring your notice to that only, I brought these symptoms. You don't have to remember this one, carbonium sulfate. It shows to take proton by warm food as a matter later. Then amelioration, it will be in open air, like pulsatilla and even sulfur. Mm, they have that open
Is the
air.
desire to be fanned in Carboveg? Can you say the same if the patient wants to be in an air conditioned room?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Uh, because they want that fresh air. There will be this one mostly. Uh, it is when we touch, we feel that the temperature has become subnormal. And they will
Mhm.
be in actually the collapse condition. What we say the collapse condition, the patient who is having cholera, because of his loss of this dehydration, the skin will lose its turbidity, and then it will be very, um, uh, when we touch, it will, the temperature will be high, subnormal, but still the patient himself will be feeling a warm sensation. His body is inside feeling warmth, and then he wants that cold air. It prefers actually, we have to compare, like when we say aircon preference, we need to connect it with the place where the patient is also in. So, for example, if I think it from India, in every house of India, we don't have this aircon. Usually, more it's only the rich and the upper middle class who has aircon in their house. Or maybe, and even the upper middle class, they will be having only one bedroom, or maybe maximum two, which has got aircon. Not everyone. So there we will be giving the preference when we say that the patient wants to be fanned. We believe that the patient, even though he's feeling cold, he wants the windows to be open and the fan also to be there, that fresh air to be there, because aircon is not present over there. And now when we go and think about this in European countries, I'll come to Malaysia, but wait, we go to the European countries, it is already cold over there, but still as like pulsatilla we say, here we see that amelioration is open air. So that's the fresh air they want. They have that lack of air or that air hunger, and that is why they want to be fanned. We are feeling when we touch them, their body to be cold. Internally, they are feeling hot. That's why they want that. So even in Europe, we go where this drug was proved. We can compare that they want that fresh air or the windows to be open, because in Europe, of course, they don't have that aircon. I don't know about the hotter places of Europe, like Germany and all. I think it is pretty hot during summer. But I have been just only to UK, and it is, we don't want aircon over there, only in summers, but then we open the windows at that time. So otherwise, it is the only heater we have. I mean, that place, wherever I lived in UK, they only had that heater. They didn't have even the fan or aircon over there. There was nothing. So only during and all the other climate time we don't want that. Only during that summer, 1 month or something, we feel extremely hot. Then we have to keep the windows open. Then the cold air will be coming. So in that patient, if a patient in Europe, they are wishing for that. We can imagine there also they want that window to be opened and the fresh air to get in. But when we come to Malaysia, in Malaysia, though it is having a weather which is very similar to India, the tropical weather, very warm. Every room over here is having this one. What is that? Aircon. And one of the main reason I felt is here there are a lot of condos, and not all rooms in the condos are having windows. There are rooms in which windows are not there. So there
Yeah.
is no, yeah, so there is not easy for the fresh air to come in. And that is why I felt like the engineering in Malaysia is set in such a manner you get the air like that from the aircon at least, because the fresh air can't come in all the rooms. So here we can compare that. Okay, here when we say that the patient wants fresh air, it is the aircon. But if Malaysia had the option of opening the windows, they might be the fresh air. It is basically what we mean is they want that fresh air to be blown on their face. And seriously, it is not a theoretical thing. We could say, I have seen patients who say that though they feel chilliness, they may be
Mhm.
using one or two blankets, but still they want that fan on their face. They will be
Mhm.
running the fan on their face. They are actually using two blankets, which means they're feeling chilly. But still,
Mhm.
they want that air to be reaching on their face. And if they don't get that, they feel like they are getting suffocated.
Mhm.
I have heard that patient saying. So yeah, that's a very common symptoms we can see in patients. When I'm very sure you're going to see when you start practice, the patient saying like this.
Okay.
So it is fanning means they want that fan or that air to fall on their face. That air hunger will be reduced. That's a basic idea.
Okay.
Then comparisons. These are the spheres where we have to compare all these five remedies: carbo veg, carbo animalis, and then Baryta carb, graphitis, and carbonium sulfuratum. So we have mind. Some of the remedies are there in all, but not all the conditions. Like mind, I think I'm going to compare all the remedies.
Mhm.
Glance also, because this is a remedy. Because of that carb presence, we have actions of almost all the remedies in glance. And in the glance itself, I have considered the male and female symptoms. I didn't separate it out. I took it together. Even the throat complaints, I put everything in glance. Then circulatory system, because this is a medicine that is mainly acting on all the veins, the venous congestion. So circulatory system we have. Then GIT, because there is carbo veg, graphitis, which are very much important in GIT complaints. And finally, skin, especially because of graphitis. So these are the five spheres where we will be comparing these five remedies. So this is some common feature. The carbon group all have putrid discharges and exhalation. So this is a common feature of carbon remedies. All the discharges, when it is very putrid or very offensive, we can think about carbon group. And another one will be mercury group. Another one will be acid group. All these groups, they will be having very putrid discharge. All the discharge, exhalation, everything. That will be so because these medicines are all having carbon. All the medicines will be having their exhalations or any discharge that is very offensive. And we can see that also when we learned about graphitis, even their discharge. Now, when we, if you remember in carbo veg also, they have that cadaverous smelling stool. Then even Baryta Carb. Baryta Carb, they have offensive foot sweat. And graphite is also there is offensiveness. So offensiveness is a basic nature of carbon group. And others also I told you, the mercury and acid. But for now, we'll concentrate the carbon group. Then everything act on the skin, all these remedies, and it causes intertrigo and also excoriations. All these five remedies. Intertrio, which means in the area where two skins are meeting, or two structures like a juncture, which means the elbow region, then the groin region, all those folds where two parts are meeting. So,
Okay.
although in that intertrigo, like in that area, there will be action of skin, especially graphitis. Then there can be glandular enlargement, and that is also due to the carbon element, which is having a catarrhal state, flatulency, and asphyxiation. So these are some common features. I should separate it from that. Okay, so we start with mind, start with carbo animalis. Carbo animalis, as such, mind is not important, but
Mhm.
this one I felt like when we are going to take the mind per se, carbo animalis mind is not important that much, but still I put it just to get you informed. The important symptom will be this: the hearing is confused, and the patient cannot tell from what direction a sound comes. But this may not be completely a psychological symptom. This can be an organic dysfunction also.
Okay.
Yeah, some abnormality with the hearing sensation, or
Oh.
some pathology with the ears affected. That could be the
Okay.
reason. It can be purely psychological. But this is the importance, hearing confused and the patient cannot tell from what direction the sound is coming. Then other symptoms are not that much important, but I just put it because never the question is going to come like compare the mind of all these drugs, or just mind of carbo animalis. Uh,
Mhm.
but mind is only because the symptom was the, I just put that to show you. And carbo animalis. But other than that, I think it is the other four remedies. Graphite is mind is important. Baryta cup, it is also important. This one, carbo wedge is important. Carbonium sulfuratum, even their mind is not that characteristic, I think. What is in carbonium sulfuratum? And did I put it? I think I have put it. Graphite is carbonium. Ah, yeah. Some suicidal complaints is the some that's why I put this one carbo animalis also, and only this
Mhm.
symptom is important. They have a desire to be alone, sad, and reflective, dwelling on past disappointments. They avoid conversation, anxiety at night with orgasm of blood. Even if you forget all these things, it doesn't matter. And I told you I'm not going to ask you this question, but
Okay.
just remember this one: hearing confused. Because all the other symptoms, this is very common in many other drugs we can see. So
Yeah.
there is nothing, yeah, there's nothing characteristic, but this one is somewhat important. Then in CarboVeg, the patient is extremely exhausted. You know the CarboVeg patient who is very lazy, very indolent in nature. They are having that physical and mental exhaustion. The mental state is of torpor, that is, they don't want to do anything, complete lazy indolence nature. And this is one of the differentiating feature with ourselves. Now if you remember ourselves is also having somewhat that terminal stage, a collapse condition where the vitality is very much lost, everything much similar to carbonate. Here also in case of ourselves also, the patient will be having a subnormal temperature because all of this, it is usually the end stage of cholera over there had been loss of fluid, which the medicine is indicated in the terminal stage. So in the terminal stage also, otherwise we expect the patient to be dying, all that hypocritic nature where the skin turbidity is lost. They're feeling, I mean, when we touch the body, the temperature is very low and low vitality, almost in a collapse condition. That blue cyanotic features, the bluish lips. We can see that in carboveg and also ourselves, but the differentiating feature will be regarding their mind. In case of ourselves, it is one of the three or four restlessness. Mental restlessness is very characteristic. We see that they move from one place to another. They can't sit in one place, which shows this physical restlessness, but also mentally, they have that anxiety. They have that anxiety. Are they going to die? They feel like they are going to die, and they have that fear of dying. All those mental anxiety and fear we can see in case of ourselves. But in Karpovich, the patient is so exhausted, he's just lying like a log. He's not thinking anything.
Mhm.
He's so indolent. So on physical level, we see both the patients are in collapse condition. All those physical manifestations I told you, it will be similar. But mentally, we see ourselves will be extremely restless, even physically moving about, even though the patient is in a collapse condition and they feel like, am I going to die? We could see that terror in that in the face or the countenance of ourselves. But Karpovich will be totally dying in it. So
Okay.
they will be like torpor or lazy and not completely inactive type. So that is most important. Then there is slow thinking, doesn't matter much. There is indifference, I told you, then that indifference is a part of indolence. There can be peevishness, easily angered, but not in the last stage, the collapse condition, maybe earlier, but it doesn't matter. They will be having the despair with lachrymose humor or crying in nature, but the most important will be the desire for death and tendency to suicide. So the patient is almost sure they are dying and they are desiring for death. And this is one difference with ourselves also. Ourselves, they are scared of death. They don't want to die. That extreme fear to death is there. But here, so both are in collapse condition. One is extremely scared of death and one is mentally very restless. But the other one is like, I want to die. Let this torture finish. So they are desiring for death, or they have a tendency to suicide. They don't want to suffer much. They are done with that exhaustion. So that is the feature of Carbovich in mind. And Graphite's mind, they're similar to the mind of pulsatilla. They have excessive cautiousness. They're very timid, indecisive, hesitancy, or they can't decide properly, like
Mhm.
pulsatilla. And then fidgety is the while sitting at work. They're sad, despondent, and they cries or they feel sad, especially when they are hearing music. Music makes a weep. That's a characteristic feature. This music makes a weep. We have other remedies like aconite, sabina, ambragracia, then natron carb. We have other remedies also. We can compare this, people who dwell in their past, especially teenage girls.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they don't have any other job, maybe loss of love or something. They may keep some music, uh,
Mm.
especially the Bollywood music. In India, this could be very common. They hear the Bollywood music, all those nostalgic, all those love failure breaking music, and
Mhm.
then they start crying. They hear the lyrics, and then they start feeling it. So music makes a weep. This is a constitutional symptom. Many of the drugs we can see that. So young graphitis is having, and they thinks of nothing but death. They also desire, and that is because of their sad nature, something that have gone. So yeah, music is intolerable. They have given Natrankab, Sabina, Ambragracious, another. Then they have fixed idea and compulsive behavior. So in conditions of OCD, obsessive
Okay.
compulsive disorder, we can think about, and how they express that obsessive nature is they have a sensation of cobweb on forehead and tries hard to brush it off. They'll be always doing like this,
Mm.
uh, as if there is something on their face or the especially here in forehead, and they're completely trying to remove it from them. So that is how they manifest OCD. In other words, OCD, generally the symptoms will be like they are not sure. They have to check it, recheck it to confirm. Like they're driving to home, I mean driving to office, and they would be like, did I off the gas stove, or did I off
Mm.
that heater, or did I lock the house? And then if they're sleeping, they will be like, is there some thief inside the house? That, and then they go and check again, check again, check again. And then sometimes OCD can be with regard to cleanliness. It's not
Okay.
clean. So they just go and do the repetitive action, even to the level of a mania. That is actually OCD. So here also we have the graphite that OCD nature, and mostly it is expressed as something on the curve that is present on the forehead or the face total, and they're trying to remove it off or brush it off. And when I say this symptom, you can compare it with the web or spider web sensation, not the sensation. In case of carbonium sulfuratum, we saw that in vision, because the vision is affected, that cloudiness is there. We told in carbonium sulfuratum, they have a symptom like spider web, as of a spider web over the objects. So in carbonium sulfuratum, the spider web sensation is actually during their vision. That object is blurred or it is surrounded with all that spider's web. So the
Yeah.
thing the person is seeing, he's not able to perceive it properly. So that is the problem with regard to the vision and the eye complaints with so. But this is completely mental symptom, the psychiatric symptom, where the patient is feeling that same cobweb sensation or the spider's web is the, but this is a perceptual error. The child will be impudent and laugh at reprimands. This is important, like a MCQ question also it can come up.
Okay.
Graphite child. Then carbonium sulf, they are the addicts of alcohol, tobacco, narcotics. We saw that the patient, they will be broken down due to
Yeah.
abuse of alcohol. So that addicts we can think about. Then children, they will be having this autism, mental retardation, and cerebral palsy. So this may be also a feature of the carb, because in calcarea carb also we see that the comprehension is very less. And when we go to the next remedy in this list, Baryta carb, they are idiotic children actually, if you remember that. They also have this mental retardation very
Mhm.
characteristically. So yeah, carbonium syrup could be thought about children who are having autism, mental retardation, cerebral palsy. And in case of cerebral palsy, mostly the neurological manifestations, other neurological manifestations would be the like some of the other physical symptoms um, regarding their walking, their talking, something might be affected. Even mental retardation, yes, but that will be mostly the chromosomal error and that leading to autism is just behavioral disorder. Uh, Then the children might be unfriendly, sulky, quarrelsome, which is going towards the sulfur. But most importantly, they have this suicidal disposition, throwing himself from a window, which is also seen in sulfur. So all the drugs that we discussed up to now, somehow they are wishing for death. The first remedy we saw, carbo, which they are wishing
Mhm.
for death. Uh, yeah, in carbon animals, we have not seen, though they are thinking about all the bad things, we didn't see that they wish for death. But in carbo, which we see, there is a desire for death. In graphite is also, we see that thinks of nothing but death. And in carbon itself also, because of the self content, they want to do that suicidal disposition.
Okay.
Then mentally, this symptom can be connected to the children who are autistic. So there will be a sluggish psyche, or the psychological development will be reduced. Children may be dyslexic, amnesic, apathetic, and indolent. Dyslexic, that dyslexia, the learning error, and apathetic, they don't care, total indifferent. Amnesia is
Mhm.
forgetfulness. So this can culminate into dementia and imbecility. So proof of maximum old age second childhood. So this carbonium sulf in mental sphere is much similar to the drug Baryta carb. There is a statement that is kept that carbonium sulf can be given to the old age people or the second childhood. So the same
Mhm.
symptom we can see in case of the drug Baryta carb also. So we get even the adults who are having this type of dementia, confused absent mindedness also. And also the children who are dyslexic, can't be taught anything, autistic, mental retardation. So whenever the mental sphere is affected or it is retarded, whatever be the age, old age or children, we can think about both carbonium sulfuratum and Baryta carb.
Okay.
Yeah, in adults, when they say dementia, it can be best indicated remedy in case of Alzheimer's. So they have certain delusions that they are surrounded by enemies, magnificent visions of magnificent grandeur. They are about to receive injury or talks of money. And when we say this delusional, this delusion is also a feature of sulfur. You remember that?
Yeah.
Sulfur has got, yeah, sulfur has got all these delusions. That's why we call it as a ragged philosopher.
Yeah.
Even in rags, they see that thing, and also they have the delusion that they are some kings. That's seen in sulfur. So we could see that symptom in carbonium sulfuratum also. And we go to Baryta cup, almost similar. This is adapted to first and second childhood. And second childhood, what we mean is old age. Because in old age, we say that the cycle is being repeated in another way. Even in first childhood, they need, children need the support of the parents, even to walk or, to change the diaper, all those things, to eat, because their motor skills have not much developed. And when it comes to the second childhood, which is the old age, then also they are depending on other people because their motor skills, it's not that they it does not develop, it is degenerating. So then also they have that dependence. So that's why we call that first and second childhood. So first childhood is actually the childhood and second is the old age. So
Okay.
the children, in case of Baryta Cup, they will be mentally and physically weak, memory deficient, forgetful, inattentive. Child cannot be taught anything because it cannot remember. The threatened idiocy, the same mental retardation, autism, shyness, etc. We can compare here. The
Mm-hmm.
shyness, the social anxiety, fear of strangers, what you see in case of autistic children. They're just involved in their own world. They don't bother what is happening. And most of these autistic children, they can't come into a public occasion. When they are taken into a crowd, like a marriage reception, either they won't be bothered about who is the surrounding them. They will be in their own world. If they have some doll or some ball, some play item with them, they will be completely engaged with that, and they don't want anyone to come and disturb them. We see the child and we go to the child, just to just to talk or to take the child. It's a child, but the child won't be happy because they don't want to
Mm-hmm.
get into that social circle. And sometimes they will be quite irritable when they see that crowd. They don't want to get into that crowd. They somehow want to go back into the safety of their home, or in the home itself they will be having a particular corner. The autistic children, that their behavior, so they want to be getting into that comfortable area where they are not disturbed by anyone. So this shyness, social anxiety, fear of strangers, which is a part we can compare to uh, um, compared to autism. So in carbonium sulf, we see in Baryta carb also. The Baryta carb can also be indicated in case of women, but these women, they will be dwarfish in nature, so that physical standard growth we can see in their physical nature, the standard growth. So they will be dwarfish. They will be old maids, like they would be not married, unmarried women, and hence they will be showing that hysterical nature. So with scandimensis, deficient heat, always cold and chilly. So if when you learn Baryta curve, you would have learned to which all constitutions this medicine suits for. So we include all the three categories. One is the child who is having an idiotic nature or the mental retardation. When I say these sentences blatantly, idiotic, threatened, idiocy, don't think the political correctness is key in that sentences. I'm just using the material medical language.
Okay.
And I know socially we are not allowed to use even the word mental retardation is not allowed to use. There is so another term we have to use mental. Uh, what is the term? New term? You remember?
For
Uh,
mental retardation?
yeah. Mental handicap, I think so. Mental handicap. It's been mentioned in community medicine textbook. That's the term we have to use. Mentally handicapped
Oh, okay.
or mentally disabled, something like that. We shouldn't even use the term mental retardation.
Okay.
And there is another condition also in community medicine. It usually comes in community medicine.
Oh,
According to this one, there is a scale for IQ, intelligent quotient. So almost all the persons average IQ people, they will be having 100 and then above 100. It may go up to 130 or something. So every 10 there is a change of cycle. It's every 10 there is a change of scale, so the term
mhm.
changes. So average
Oh,
is, I think, around 90 to 100, the normal. Then it is becoming intelligent, then genius, something it goes. Now I don't remember, but the lower one I remember. The lower one, they used to be terming like morose, not morose, that's sadness, moron, moron, moron,
okay.
stupid, idiot, something like that. Every category, when it is 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, like that, the term comes moron, idiot, foolish, or something. Some bad terms like that. Earlier it was, but now it has been changed. We have to use like terms like severely, um, severely mental depressed, something, not mental depression, but like that, moderate, severe, then slightly, like that the term goes. Now we are not allowed to use the terms like moron, idiotic, that terms.
Okay.
So whenever I told you, whenever I'm saying threatened idiocy, mental retardation, but only the material medical language I'm using, we are not supposed to use that nowadays in the medical field actually. So yeah, so when you learned Baryta Carb, probably you have learned the three constitutions. The children will be having this type of mental retarded features. Then you might
Mhm.
have learned that it is better indicated for old people, old age people, especially when they have complaints with the vessels. I mean the blood vessels. We'll see that later. So old people, and also those people who have complaints with prostate, they will be having importance. So Baryta Carb is indicated for them. And the third constitution where Baryta Carb is indicated is this women, the unmarried women who are dwarfish also, which is showing their physical stunted growth and hysterical in nature. So we could connect it to their celibacy nature because they were unmarried, so they are celibate, which means the sexual desire is repressed and hence it is expressed in their mental sphere as hysterical. So that is why I put Baryta Cup, just show that even the women who are hysterical in nature could be indicated Baryta Cup. And that hysteria is mainly because they are unmarried. So there is a sexual repression. So
Okay.
they will be having Scandinensis and chili nature, which is chili nature is of course Baryta carb, similar to Hepa sulf, Silesia, Calcarea carb. Even they want to be covered, wrapped up always. Baryta carb is extremely chilly. Then in old people who are having senile dementia, uh, bashful, confused, aversion to strangers. So the same, even the dementia that we mentioned over here, Alzheimer's, we can the carbonium sulf and the Baryta carb mind it goes together. So it will be childish behavior and mental immaturity even in older persons. That is
Okay.
Baryta carb. We go to the glandular symptoms. Glandular symptoms starting with Carbo animalis. So glands, we have separate set of symptoms in Carbo animalis. I just started with the constitution. So the Carbo animalis is mostly indicated in case of elderly persons. Uh, and this is another common feature we can see, mostly indicated in elder persons and not just elder, but most of the complaints, because in Carbo animalis, we go for
Mhm.
carbonium sulfuratum, both but still elderly people is indicated. Baryta carb, elderly people is indicated. Graphitis. It's mostly the elderly people that we have the sentence that while pulsatilla is in puberty,
Mhm.
is graphite is during climax.
Yes.
So we have that older age. These set of remedies are mostly indicating in the uh, elderly group. So
Okay.
carboanimalis, it is indicated in elderly persons with venous plethora or the varicose, blue cheek, blue lips, and great debility. Just the constitution mentioned, but then the glandular feature, all the glands may be affected, especially in the neck, axillae, groin, and mammary. So all the lymph glands in this area, the neck, axilla, groin, mammary will be affected, and that will be indurated, swollen, and painful. And whenever we use this term, mammary indurated or axillary lymph glands that is indurated, understand we are going towards cancer. That's a feature. We are
Okay.
going to mention about the mammary gland swelling with induration. It is going towards cancer. And whenever we say axilla, that's also mammary gland. The lymph nodes will be affected. The axillary lymph nodes will be getting swollen in case of breast cancer. So whenever you see in materia medica, the glands that is swollen and indurated in the axilla, in the mammary, believe that it is going towards cancer condition. So here we have that cancer condition, and we already saw that the person carbo animalis, they are also in that condition. They want to die, or they are in that end condition. So the cancerous conditions which are ending towards the end, you can think about that. And because we are mentioning about the cancer, though the word cancer is not actually used over here, this is indicating towards cancer. So the pains will be lancinating, cutting, and burning. The burning feature will be a common feature in case of cancer. All the cancer ulcers, cancer pains, they will be having that burning nature. And then lancinating. Lancinating is similar to the pain, what we see, the lightning like comes and goes, and also like some sharp object is pointing in. So a lancinating pain will be some severe pain coming from a sharp pointed object, and it's as if it is piercing in one small area, in one small spot. That's a common feature in case of all the cancerous conditions. When you learn the cancerous remedies in homeopathy, and then you learn in not materia medica, the practice of medicine, the cancerous features, you can see this nature. The lancinating, burning pain, it's very common. It's a disease symptom, and it's a medicine symptom also. Then benign suppurations which change into ichorous or malignant conditions. So all the here that use the term malignant, so indicating that all this what we are mentioning is going towards the cancer. So all the benign conditions or suppurative conditions where there is a gland swelling with some pus accumulation, it can later change into a cancerous condition with ichorous discharge. Ichorous discharge will be the destruction of that particular area that is happening, and then from the very offensive, watery, but it will be the tissue that is being broken, the tissue debris. Actually, it is a cancerous condition where we could see this ichorous discharges. So that gives us, so all the cancerous conditions, the glands ending with the cancerous condition, we can think about animalis. And the person generally will be elderly one with the venous complaints, with debility. Even if we don't have this collapse condition, that will be the end stage. But we get the person who is elderly with cancerous condition, the ulcer with this burning, lancinating pain, and this varicose complaints. We can think about carbo animalis. Then I told you in glance I have considered the male and the female symptoms also. So I put it over here: menstruation, leukorrhea, diarrhea, or all exhaustion. And the characteristic feature is, in case of carbo animalis, after the appearance of menses, the patient is so weak she can hardly speak. This feature we'll see in another drug that is alumina.
Uh-huh.
Then we have another drug. Appearance of menses is so weak. What are the medicines that we are learning here? Carbovage, carbonium sulfate, Baryta, Carb, uh, Baryta, Carb, graphitis. and Carbo animalis. There is some other remedy with extreme weakness. One is coquillus, then another one I told you now, but there is one that let me check. Carbo animalis. Yesterday when I was preparing the notes, I remembered to say that, but I
Mm-hmm.
forgot. It's that remedy. Because when I was noticing, yeah, aluminum coquillus is what that has been put over here. There is some remedy that you have learned. In this video, okay, let I see. Even in the comparison, I'm not seeing. Okay, let I come towards later. This one, menses flow only in morning. Remember our other medicine, causticum is coming under that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, appearance of menses so weak. We'll see whether I have mentioned in some other drug. But it's in graphitis. There is some more drug. It is coming over here, I believe. Then carbonium sulfuratum. They are having glandular swellings, especially goiter.
Okay.
So, in the textbook, it is only given goiter as a clinical condition where we can give carbonium sulfuratum, but then you have to go to the general constitution, the goiter with that specific mental symptoms, that
Okay.
broken down constitution, and especially due to alcohol. In those conditions, because of this carb and the salt, definitely they have that glandular affections, but then other symptoms should match. Then I connected with this glandular complaints, even the ear complaint. I just considered it as like that. The Meniere disease, tinnitus aurium, that coming under the carbonium salt. And even in males, they have impotence, the desire lost, parts atrophied, frequent profuse emissions. So that comes under the carbonium salt. Anyway, the most important will be the goiter and then the constitution, which is broken down by alcohol, narcotics, and all the other constitutional symptoms we mentioned. Then, in case of graphitis, they're having a lot of symptoms in the glands. Actually, when we say about the gland, because I put the female and male reproductive system also over here, it started with the
Mm-hmm.
constitution. So, graphitis generally obese women, habitual constipation, and delayed menstruation. If we have to say three symptoms regarding the constitution, like in a triangle, we can say like that: obese women, habitual constipation, and delayed menstruation. That would be the graphitis constitution. Then in males, there will be sexual debility from sexual abuse, but we can also see there is a decided aversion to coition, which is seen in both sexes. And in case of females, the menses already we told that there will be a delayed menstruation, so the menses will be too scanty, pale, like pulsatilla, with violent colic and delayed from getting feet wet. So graphitis was very similar to pulsatilla in constitution in the Mendel because both are despondent, sad, and they are indecisive, hesitant in nature. Even pulsatilla is having an aversion to opposite sex. Here also in graphitis we see in decided aversion to coition to both sex. So even both are having an obese constitution, both are delicate and fair skinned people, uh, and mentally also. So, but the so many similarities. Even the GIT symptoms of graphitis and pulsatilla has to be compared. It's not similar, but there are similarities. But then thermal, it changes. Thermal in case of graphitis will be very cold, and pulsatilla is very warm. And graphitis, if we go to the GIT, we can see constipation and hot milk amelioration. And pulsatilla, it will be usually the a fatty food that is aggravating. And even graphitis has got fatty food aggravation. I think so.
Okay.
So menses is like that, similar to pulsatilla in case of graphitis. Leukorrhea is the, but leukorrhea, it is acrid excoriating. You forget it doesn't matter. The thing you have to remember will be this one, before and after menses, which means the leukorrhea is free or the patient doesn't have leukorrhea only during menses. All the other time before or after, the person is having leukorrhea, which is in gushes day and night. Then there is morning sickness during menstruation. Ah, yeah, graphitis. This is what. Very weak and prostrated during menstruation. So we saw over here carbo animalis. Where is the carbo animalis? The patient won't be even that she is so weak that she can't even speak after the appearance of menses.
Mhm.
So similar symptom we see in graphitis. But when we take the graphitis per se, I don't think in graphitis they have put maybe in boric, but in not. They have given very weak and prostrated, and in that they have put carbo animalis. Still, but when we remember this drug as such, that's why it
Mhm.
went from my memory. When we say very weak and prostrated during menses, the three remedies that we are going to remember, or we remember, I mean, as I as a student, or we had to remember was these three: cocculus, alumina, and carbo animalis. Graphitis doesn't come much over there, but that's a feature in graphitis also. Then graphitis can be given for the cancerous condition, the induration. Whenever we see the term induration, understand it is going towards cancer. So the ovarian cancer, the uterine cancer, or the breast cancer. Graphitis is a very good remedy, and we have seen that it is in the elderly people, and all these cancers are possible only after, usually after to 40s. There may be some cancer, especially if it is affecting the uh, germ layers. Some type of ovarian cancers are the where the germ layers of the ovum has affected. That can happen below 220, but most of these ovary, uterine, and mammary cancer happens after 240. So even the constitution is elderly or the climatic, so we can connect like that. And when there is mammary cancer, the nipples will be affected. It will be so cracked and blistered. And this soreness, cracked nature, we can see in generally the skin symptoms of graphitis. The skin symptoms of graphitis is characteristic with all those fissures, red gates, etc. So in some people during the winter season, you can see the skin will be becoming fissured, or
Uh-huh.
there will be what you say for that fissure itself, what you say regates and fissure is what we use say during the winter season, the tip of the fingers, it will be getting fissured. What do you say for that?
Like,
Huh?
I'm trying to say that it's dry or
Not dry, yeah, dryness is there because if we are going to
uh-huh.
say them to use moisture, because it is
Uh-huh.
due to the winter, the dry weather, uh,
Mhm.
they are having that its fissures, or the skin will be just cracking, and it's a
Okay.
characteristic feature during winter season. So
Mm.
we just use the term skin cracking or fissures or regates. That's how I
Okay.
use, but I don't know when we are using the common speaking English, the spoken language. I don't know what is the term because it's the fissures and regates. That's the scientific or the medical term, but I don't know what is used. You understood that condition, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So graphitis and petroleum are the two important remedies when we have that type of symptoms. So my brother, every winter, it's a periodical complaint for him. Every winter he will be having that regates, and once I prescribe him petroleum and
Mhm.
petroleum and graphitis can be could be given. So I just gave him petroleum in 0 bar 6. That was the potency I gave. But after to that, he never had that complaint, at least for 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
Not any
Okay.
winter. But then again, it appeared last year or 2 years before. Then I prescribed him again petroleum, but that time I gave him because I knew already petroleum 0 bar 6 had acted. I gave him
Mhm.
in 200, 1 dose or 2 dose, I don't remember. And after that, up to now, it does not come. So
Wow.
usually it's only, yeah, only in this certain people during the winter season, the skin, the tip of the fingers, both the feet, the toes, and also fingers, it will be getting irritated. So graphitis and petroleum is good for that. So even the nipples, especially, and that in nipples, usually we don't see it in the winter season. that will be more connected with the mammary cancer. Then the cicatrices, the heart cicatrice, it will be remaining open after mammary abscess or after cancerous condition, which retard the flow of milk. Cancer of breast, from old scars and repeated abscess, all cicatrices break open again, like what we saw in causticum. The patients take cold easily and they are very sensitive to draft of air. The Baryta cup, actually, we are saying about this glands, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes, the glandular symptoms. So glandular symptoms, yeah, because graphite we don't say much about their throat complaints. Uh, they do have some throat complaint, but not that characteristic. But they do have this symptom, taking cold easily and sensitive to draft of air. They have, but more it is going towards the glandular affections, cancerous condition that graphitis is indicated to. Then Baryta Carb, of course, it is the medicine, the chronic or the chronic constitution for the quinsy, the tonsillitis complaints. We can think of Baryta Carb. So this is a medicine for infancy and old age. The constitution will be, and the remedy important for scrofulous children, mentally and physically they are backward, dwarfish, scrofulous ophthalmia. So even the eye glands or that even from their birth, the eyes would be affecting. Swollen abdomen, they take hold very easily. They will be having that swollen tonsils and submaxillary gland inflammation or its swelling. So everything, the Baryta will be the complaints almost always concentrated in the neck, the throat region, all the glands present over here. The persons will be subject to quinsy, which is prone to separate. Of course, quinsy that is a tonsillar abscess. So I don't know why still they say it is prone to separate. Quinsy is already separated, but still that's the material medical language they have used, which is prone to separate. Then tonsils which are inflamed with stitching and smarting pain when swallowing. And that is aggravated from empty swallowing, and sometimes the pain will be radiating towards the ear region. This is an important feature. When they have the throat complaints, they can swallow only liquids. When you learn lacuses, you can see it is opposite. In case of lacuses, they have aggravation from swallowing liquids, but they can swallow solids easily. But in case of Baryta cup, it's just the reverse. And when we imagine or when we think about it, when we have a sore throat, I don't know about you, but generally, I mean, you
Mhm.
can say after to this, generally when we have sore throat, we have a difficulty or pain that is being aggravated when we are empty swallowing. Empty swallowing means when we are trying to swallow the saliva.
Saliva, yeah.
Yeah. So at that time we feel a very, very big pain over there. And then when we are drinking water also, if it is warm water, generally we feel some amelioration. But otherwise,
Mhm.
when we are going to swallow water, that's what usually we see. So they, in case when we think like that, Baryta cup, they can swallow liquids. So it becomes a
Mm.
cure symptom or not much commonly seen. What we commonly see, or maybe 60%, I don't know the exact, but mostly the people will be like, they may say this empty swallowing or the swallowing of that saliva or the water is painful.
Mhm.
While they are eating, they are not feeling that much pain. That's the general what we could hear from patients. But in case Baryta, they have this quinsy everything, but they are very comfortable to swallow that liquid, not the solid.
Okay.
Then they have throat affections from checked food sweat or controlled food sweat. There can be swelling and indurations, especially of cervical and inguinal glands. So swelling and indurations, swelling, we can connect it to the throat complaints, the child, the tonsillitis, adenoids, etc. But when we go towards the indurations and we say cervical, inguinal, it is what we are mentioning is the cancerous condition. And Baryta curve in the elderly, it can be given for indurations, especially of prostate testis.
Okay.
So the cancerous condition. So again, the gland's cancerous condition, graphitis, in this group, graphitis and Baryta carb, and also Carbo animalis. So they have this degenerative changes, hypertrophied prostate or indurated testes with diminished desire and premature impotence. And in case of
Okay.
women, just connecting with their menstruation, they will be having scanty menses. All that the feature I told you earlier. So this medicine, I mean this Baryta carb, this will go and deal more of it in the circulatory system. So glandular structures in Baryta carb, they can affect mainly the arteries, the blood vessels, and then they can result in aneurysm and some senile changes in the blood vessels, even resulting in its rupture leading to stroke. But because it goes towards the circulatory system also, I am dealing it over there. Okay.
Okay.
And then circulatory system, carboveg, the bad effects of exhausting diseases. The patient is completely loss of vital fluids, and because of that, his complaints are coming. He's never fully recovered from previous illness. I'm just skipping it off because you studied the drug. It can be indicated in young or old. So this is also a common feature in all these five remedies we are seeing. Cachetic person, cachetic means the cachexia, the end
Yeah.
or the terminal condition, the cancerous cachetic person whose vitality being weakened or exhausted. Bad effects from loss of vital fluids, and it can be anything. Post cholera. So cholera means in that the intestinal fluid being lost, or it can be due to hemorrhage. And hemorrhage can be from its any mucous membrane. There can be epistaxis. And this, in case of epistaxis, they do say this daily attack for weeks worse from exertion. But more than that, this feature is important. The face is pale before as well as after hemorrhage, because when the epistaxis is happening, which means there
Yeah.
is a blood congestion. So we expect the face to be reddish before the epistaxis. And once the blood has gone, we expect that area to become pale. That is
Okay.
what
Yeah.
we physiologically expect. Initially, when the blood is coming, means there should be a congestion. So the skin should be reddish before to epistaxis, and after to that, because the congestion has got relief, it should be pale. But for these people, it is pale before as well as after hemorrhage. That's why the I put that sentence in yellow color. When we just read it, we feel like this is a normal sentence. What is the thing? But then we connect physiologically, this is not a normal thing. We don't
Yeah.
expect the face to be pale even before epistaxis. We are expecting congestion physiologically. But for them,
Uh-huh.
they have like that symptom, a cure symptom, we can say, or the individual symptom. So if we, because for us, the medicine indication comes from this rare, pure, strange symptoms, the individual symptoms of patient. More than epistaxis, it might be this feature and the total loss of vitality of the patient, the mental symptoms, we get that nature. Then hemorrhage, we already told, and there will be Hippocratic face, that very characteristic feature where the face is very pale or sometimes grayish yellow. Pale in case if the patient is very fair or if the patient is somewhat dark constitution, we see that a grayish color is the, not even yellowish, it will be more grayish or darkish. The
Okay.
cold and cold to touch and also cold sweat. There will be looseness of teeth or easily bleeding gums. So all the complaints related to hemorrhage. There will be free flowing of blood. That is the feature. So it is the venous system that is affecting. There will be deficient capillary circulation with blueness of skin or cyanosis and coldness of extremities. Vitality is very much lost, and the patient wants have the desire to be constantly fanned. The patient awakens with cold limbs because there is a sensation as if the water, sorry, not water, blood, the blood is being stagnated in the capillaries. So the patient wakes up in the sleep, from the sleep with cold limbs, but still he wants that constantly fanned because he has that hunger, air hunger, and as I told already, they want that fresh air to be
Uh-huh.
on their face. So usually if carboveg is indicated in last stage of disease with copious cold sweat, cold breath and cold tongue, voice is lost, This remedy may save a life. I'm very sure Partha sir would have told you this symptom when
Yeah.
he was taking. So it is like a death reviver or corpse reviver. When a person is going to die, when we are grieving, it may work. I mean, I can say only it may work when the if you believe in God, and I do think you believe, and if the God has decided this is the time end time for the patient, then even we can't do anything. But
Mhm.
otherwise, this is a corpse reviver. Like even from the death stage, if God is with us, we could bring that patient back to life with carbovich.
Okay.
Then in case of Carbo animalis, the same feature similar to that of Carbovich, elderly persons, blue or the cyanotic feature. Then the venous affections. And here also circulation is feeble, stagnated, similar to everything. But here they have aversion to open, dry, cold air, but not Carbovich. Carbovich, they want that constant fanning. And then
Okay.
menses, where she is so weak because this is also related to hemorrhage or in a worse circulation. I put it over there. So menses is so weak, we already saw, and varicose vein, especially in the legs. Then all the conditions in which it will be changing into ichorous or malignant condition. So hemorrhage from those structures also. Now, when I do this comparison, I think you can understand whenever we say one organ,
Uh-huh.
even though the therapeutic indications comes like that, from this you will see that the symptoms actually get mixed up. We can't
Yeah.
completely say that, oh, okay, it's only this much symptom. It depends on the mark actually. If it is 3 mark, you just put all these main symptoms only, it's fine. But if it is 5 or 10, you have to mention, give some indication to the constitution also. Then for carbonium sulfuratum, mostly the circulation. Actually, as such, circulation is not much affected, but still, I went on because their arteries and veins of the eyes are affected. I connected it like that. So, congestion, which is very marked in eyes, we already learned that the arteries and veins are becoming tortuous. The veins distended, arteries contracted, but in the eye region, and that resulting in myopia, sthenopia, achromatopsia or dyschromatopsia, cloudiness, atrophy, all those symptoms, and also the spider web sensation.
Okay.
When I edited, I made a mistake for like. Um, And going towards Baryta Carb, yeah, this is important for Baryta Carb. I told you for elderly people, this is a very good remedy. And I'm saying this so that you never forget. When I was studying Baryta Carb, because in BHMS we go only in a smaller level, we miss many of the important other indication of the drug. So in when we were taught BHMS in Baryta Cup, it was more concentrated towards a idiotic child, a mentally retarded child, and the related throat symptoms. So that is how we connected. But this medicine is having a very good action in the blood vessels. And later only, when I was doing MD only, and then MD means we have to take the boric materia medica. Until then, BHMS, I always tell you, I used to study only this, mostly this one, the keynote. Boric we had to touch during MD. So at that time, this group of remedy, the Baryta group in general, Baryta mur is the Baryta muretica, then we have Baryta iridatum, and then we have Baryta ka. Mainly, there is Baryta sulf also, but and all these Baryta group of remedies they have action in blood vessel, and they can be good remedies in case of arteriosclerosis, which means the thickening of the artery. So
Uh-huh.
arteriosclerosis ultimately it will lead to blood pressure, the hypertension. So for hypertension, all the Baryta group of remedies are very much useful. So when you learn Baryta carb, keep your mind open that it is not only for this the child or the idiotic condition or the throat or the scrofulous condition, but this is also a very good remedy in arteriosclerosis, which means the hypertension. So here we have the diseases of old men with degenerative changes where the cardiovascular and cerebral vessels are affected. And then this is just the constitution. I put it in bracket, which we were repeating from so many that they will be having hypertrophic conditions, sensitive, I mean, highly sensitive to cold or chilly patient, offensive foot sweat, very weak, etc. That's just the general constitution. The difference which we are not mentioned earlier is the changes, the degeneration changes happening in cardiovascular and cerebral. So this is a cardiovascular poison. See Baryta. Only the word Baryta. So anyone, any medicine in Baryta group, among all the four, like Baryta Carb, Baryta More, Baryta Additum, Baryta Sulf, if we have to select one medicine which is very good for hypertension, that will be Baryta Additum among the four. Otherwise, all Baryta group are very nice, as in the CVS or the blood vessels. So it is the Baryta group is actually a cardiovascular poison which is acting on the muscular layer of the heart and blood vessels. So they may become softened, distended, or it can happen with aneurysms, resulting in aneurysm. Aneurysm, we know the blood vessel get ballooned up, and it can rupture. If it is rupturing, mostly the patient may end with death, but sometimes if he is not or he or not he or she is not ending with death because it is hemorrhage that is happening, they can end with a stroke. So apoplexy is the old term used for stroke actually. So blood vessels
Okay.
where there is a softening aneurysm form which ruptures and resulting in apoplexy, we can think about Baryta. And this aneurysm, usually it happens due to hypertension. So that is why the whole connection comes aneurysm, stroke, hypertension, everything. Then this can be given for arterial fibrosis, which is arteriosclerosis actually. Then this is like a strange symptom. Heart. I don't know whether we will get this symptom ever in case taking, but cardiac symptoms from suppressed foot sweat. I don't know. I mean, we can get foot sweat that getting suppressed and then manifesting as throat symptoms, tonsillitis, yeah, or ear affections. We can get like that, but a heart complaint from foot sweat, I don't know. But I saw that and I felt so strange. This I put in yellow. So anyway, this acts on the muscular layer, causing the blood pressure to be increased. The vessels might be contracted. There will be palpitation lying on left side, and that's a common feature. When the patient is lying on left side, there will be more pressure on the heart. So there will be palpitation lying on the left side because the heart being the apex being in the left side directed.
Mhm.
Then pulse will be full and hard. And Paratacam can also be given for young person who are having the habit of masturbation. They're having the complaint of dyspepsia with cardiac irritability and palpitation. You can think this medicine. And when we say this
Mhm.
palpitation, we can connect it even to the old maids, dwarfish hysterical women. If they're having palpitation, we can think about Baryta. So Baryta is having a good action, not like a hemorrhage, like what we said in case of carbo veg, carbo animalis, not like a hemorrhage like that or broken down constitution, but in case of Baryta cup, it is acting on the vessels, causing the hypertension. Then the GIT carbo veg, where the patient is very sluggish, fat, and lazy, chronic complaints. This is an important sentence. Bacteria. It finds a rich soil in nearly lifeless stream and sepsis and typhoidal state ensues, which means the blood is stagnant over there. So the bacteria can come accumulate over there because blood is stagnant means there is a, non-healing condition. So the sepsis is very easily possible. So when we connect that sentence to microbiological level, we know that whenever there is some stagnation of blood or the blood circulation is not happening very nicely in particular area, bacteria is going to get accumulated. So that's the same with carbo, a collapse condition patient whose circulation is much affected, and even if there is a small injury and the hemorrhage is happening, because we saw in case of hemorrhage of carbo, it will be venous congestion and it is blood freely oozing out. So in
Uh-huh.
such a constitution, bacteria will be finding its rich soil, I mean, to flourish, and that resulting in septic condition. And if it is happening in inside the intestine or somewhere, like post to cholera or typhoid, that condition may ensue. It's not that typhoidal state ensues per se, but what they say is this collapse condition can breed or bring about the septic condition inside the stomach. So it is not the typhoid disease what they're saying. In typhoid also, if it is going towards the chronic condition, whether typhoid has resulted in perforation of intestine. There is typhoidal ulcer that is possible. Usually, most of the people they end with the first 2 weeks manifestations of typhoid with that continuous fever, their anorexia, constipation or diarrhea. Usually, they end with that. Proper treatment is given. But in some broken down constitution, they may go into intestinal perforation, and then they can go into the collapse condition. But if you're giving earlier treatment, because typhoid is antibacterial disease, so there are, in case of allopathy, if I'm going with them, they have good medicines antibacterial for that. I'm not saying about homeopathy, we do have, but I'm saying generally. So if we are taking medication for typhoid from the start, it is very, very less chance for it to develop into a perforated condition or perforation of intestine. But if it goes, then the patient is going towards a collapse situation. So that is what they meant by this. If the perforation or something is happening, then that severe stage of typhoid that will be ensued. So the putrid or septic conditions coupled with a burning sensation. And whenever there is a putrid condition, there will be a burning sensation. Same we can see, yeah, carbo which another one will be our salb also. And this burning sensation, I told you they will be having that air hunger, the fanning sensation. It is we, when we touch, we feel that patient is having a cold temperature, but the patient himself will be feeling so heat or burning. So this burning pain with putrid condition is actually a common symptom. Whenever you go, you search for ulcers, I told you there will be a burning pain. That's a common symptom actually. So
Uh-huh.
in carbo vitality lowered, never fully recovered. But our important thing is, your tongue may be having apte, that's not much important. The gums that bleed easily, or pyorrhea, which means for the conditions of scurvy. You can think about carbo and scurvy also. The blood will be freely oozing out. So this is a good remedy for scurvy. And for GIT complaints, the complaints are coming from salt, salted meat, spoiled fish, fats, etc. Patient crave things that make them sick, and the all toppers means alcoholic persons. They crave for whiskey or brandy, and they have the symptoms of pyrosis, carbovich. It is one of the three or four the flatulence, and there is abdominal distension, or the flatulence is accumulated in the upper part. So they want clothing loose around abdomen. Even the
Okay.
simplest food disagree, excessive accumulation of gas. And there is amelioration, lying down after eating or drinking. And the complaints are from after a debauch, late supper, or rich food, butter, pork, fat food, etc. And amelioration is erectations. That gives a temporary relief. We have discussed this when I was saying urea flatulence. Then they have very offensive stool. We call it as the cadaverous smelling stool. Cadaver, the anatomy, the cadaver, that smelling, that much offensive smell will be there, which is followed by burning. Even the soft stool will be voided with difficulty. There can be piles also, which is very burning and bluish because there is hemorrhage. It will be appearing bluish, and mostly because it is the venous hemorrhage that is happening. So what they mean is it is not bright red blood. It will be that dark decomposed blood. That is why they say it is bluish. So in the last stage of the disease, we have seen this is a corpse revival. Then in carbo animalis, the GIT complaints, not as much important, but only this what I told. They have a repugnance to fat food, pyrosis condition, similar to carbovich, They can't have.
Mhm.
Pyrosis is extremely the same condition where they can't bear that tight clothing around the abdomen. That is actually the single word for that is pyrosis. Then this is a good remedy for the cancerous condition. So any ulceration and decomposition which is happening in the intestines and all the secretions being offensive. So when even this GIT complaint of carbo animalis, if the symptoms, the whole constitution matches, then we can go. And that is very much similar to that of carbo veg. Then in case of carbonium sulfuratum, there's also not much important. There is deep and disorganizing action, abuse of alcohol, chili patients, and that diarrhea, showing that periodicity. Actually, this periodicity, direct symptom is very important. And also, when we are discussing, we told that pain from wandering swellings, as from flatus. Flatus is moving from one part to another. Distension with soreness and rumbling, not important. But our graphitis, GRT is important. So we have the obese women, constipated and delayed menstruation, the cancerous condition, cancer of pylorus or duodenal ulcer. Breath is very offensive, smelling like urine. There is aversion to meat, sweets nauseate, hot drinks disagree. However, when they have this duodenal ulcer, the stomach pain, it is relieved by mainly hot drinks, especially milk. So they have a general symptom that hot drinks disagree. They are chilly patients. Still, hot drinks disagree. However, hot drinks, especially hot milk, is very much relieving their stomach pain. So these symptoms you have to remember. Okay.
Okay.
Then another one will be fullness and hardness, like incarcerated flatulence, like what we said in carbo, which the same pyrosis must loosen clothing. Actually, this is a common symptom. Whenever there is, and it is a disease symptom also. Whenever there is a abdomen full with flatus, then we don't can't bear any tight clothing. We want it to be loose. So almost all the drugs in which you're going to learn there is flatulence accumulation in the abdomen. You can see that they can't bear tight clothing. They want to make it loosen. So that's a very
Mhm.
common disease symptom. Then diarrhea of graphitis is important, where the stool is brown, intolerable odor, and mixed with undigested food. This is very important in case of graphitis. All these colored terms also. And usually it is caused by suppressed eruptions. Constipation is very important. And constipation, the stool will be very large, difficult, knotty. The most important feature is it will be united by mucus threads, or the mucous membrane layer will be sloughed off from the stool, I mean from the intestine, and that will be covering that stool. So the stool will be having that mucus thread, so mucus layer. That is the importance of stool of graphitis in case of constipation. In diarrhea, it is brownish, very offensive, undigested food materials also will be there. And in constipation, the stool will be covered with mucus thread. Then there can be hemorrhoids with prolapse of anus, smarting and sore, and fissure of anus. Because we already saw in graphitis all the skin symptoms, it will be that fissure. We can see that fissures in anus. Another two remedy will be rathania and peonia, especially for the anal region. I told you the against when it appears in the skin of fingers and toes, it's usually graphitis and petroleum that is
Petroleum.
very.
Mhm.
But when it is the anal fissure, it is graphitis, yes, but other two important remedy will be Rathania and Peonia, and mostly Rathania. Rathania is very good when there is anal fissure. Uh, then Baryta carb. Baryta carb in case of GIT, it is usually related to malignant conditions. Now, whenever there is a malignant condition, so first and the second childhood, the craving for salty food, paralysis of tongue, then can swallow liquids because it's a cure symptoms. That's why I put it. Another one, this paralysis of tongue, you can not paralysis, but still they have that spasm of esophagus. And when food enters, it causes gagging and choking. So that's a feature that carb is indicated in. Mostly it is the malignant condition that is present. And if the constitution is matching, then we can go. But the characteristic symptoms will be paralysis of tongue, spasm of esophagus, or reflex esophagitis. Then there is another one, spasm of esophagus, Barrett's esophagus. Those conditions we can think when the abnormality or the structural damages are there. Then, yeah, the cancer condition because there can be enlarged mesenteric glands, which means cancer of organs inside the abdomen. Constipation. In constipation, the GIT, the hemorrhoids, yeah, Baryta carb hemorrhoids is very important because they have this hypertension. The vessels
Mhm.
are affected. We can see that varices, hemorrhoids also. And the importance of that hemorrhoids is it protrudes every time he urinates.
Okay.
Hemorrhoids protruding during stool is very common, but hemorrhoids are protruding here even when he is urinating. Okay, so that is because urination is happening from some other organ and hemorrhoids is in anus, but still, when he urinates, the hemorrhoids are protruding. So that's a characteristic feature, and it's relating to the weakness or the degenerative nature of the blood vessels. So, in case of this one, the GIT, the symptoms will go more towards the cancerous condition, the degenerative conditions related, and the hemorrhoids. So this is the one feature that you have to remember. Then in case of skin of carbo the blue skin, cyano skin, hot perspiration. I don't know why they put hot perspiration because it is usually cold sweat in the collapse
Mhm.
condition, or maybe it is before the collapse condition. Some of the patient have hot perspiration. I don't know. Maybe not the collapse condition they're meaning, but there is senile gangrene and the ichorous offensive discharge, which is going towards the malignant condition. The varicose also with burning pain. Then carbo animalis, we have ulcer, chilblain, verruca or warts, acne rosacea, and copper color eruption. Copper color eruption is a characteristic feature of syphilis.
Okay.
Then glands will be affected, which we already saw because it's a cancerous condition. When it is skin that is oxed, we need to put that cancerous condition also over there. So all the glands affected with that characteristic pain, and also given for bubo. This is Carbo animalis bubo. You remember what is bubo?
Um, the the wait, it's a swelling, right?
Yeah, the mostly lymph glands also, which is we seen in plague, one type of plague, the buboes,
Oh,
or the inguinal glands being usually inguinal glands. Inguinal glands when it is swollen, we call that condition as bubo.
beautiful. Okay.
Yeah. So in carbonium salt, we saw the skin, the furunculosis with much itching, useful to restrain the growth of cancer, the anesthetic condition because of the sulfur content. And lastly, graphitis. We have the eczema of the eyelids, the heart cicatrices, the cancer breast, then every injury separating, then cicatrices break open again. Even the nails, it will be brittle, crumbling, and deformed. Then cracks of fissures of finger, nipple, labial commissures, um, of the anal region, etc. Then phlegmonas erysipelas. The erysipelas means the inflammation and infection of the subcutaneous layer, especially of the face, commencing on right side and going to left. And this is also good for initial stage of keloid and fibroma. Keloid, you know what is keloid, right?
Yeah.
So if it is the fibrous tissue that is affected, then it is called as the fibroma. But both are benign. Then for vents, I told you it is sebaceous cyst we call. So this is the comparison for those group of remedies. Mostly for
Okay.
exam, if at all you can expect it will be mostly GIT and glands and also
Okay.
circulatory usually. Okay, so when did we start our class?
10:30.
10:30 we started, so 2 hours passed. Okay. So the lag group we will do tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
So tomorrow 9:15. Oh, what is the time? 9:15,
Uh,
9:15.
I'm not,
You say
maybe 9:30. Is that okay?
9:30.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Okay then.
All right.
Did you take the
Screenshot?
this
Yeah,
one?
I'll send you right now.
Okay. Let us stop the recording.
Okay.